Hey Manny,
Hey, morning, Mr. Hughes.
good morning. It took me a while to download everything, so sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry about that. I definitely on my one of my last calls, I realized how many things it takes to actually get that software on your Chromecast or your Chrome.
Yeah.
I like your background. That's a really cool map.
Yeah, I got it from Germany. I was born and raised in Ghana, Africa, so I have a affinity for that continent. And
Really?
so I looked for this is the second one I have, but this is a special one because it was the colonial times before they divided up everything. So yeah.
Really? It's way before I'm trying to see the middle of
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah, and
really,
it's all
really
in
cool.
German, it's a German map. So it's got the whole continent and what they used to call it. So
Did you
it's
get a chance to well, most people I know that have ever been to Germany or Ramstein or all the bases over there, they never took a chance and went to go tour the history, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, I was there for a while, so I took advantage of visiting all the as many countries in Europe as I possibly could, and certainly Africa as well. So it was wonderful.
That's amazing. My wife, I'm sure you looked at my profile.
Hmm.
I've been married for 12 years, been with my wife 13, I believe now, actually. Yeah, we got married
Okay.
after a year of being together. So we military, we got together.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because being in the military, you see so many marriages pop up, and you're kind of like, you can't help to be like, all right, how long is it gonna go till? But yeah, we have two kids, and she actually, her mother is she's first gen. So her mother came from Thailand,
Okay.
Taiwan, came over here during the refugees during the Vietnam.
Right.
It's very interesting when you're from another country because different viewpoints, different everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it doesn't matter if it's even from another country. It's just you gain a lot of perspectives by just experiencing different things, right? Like, uh, and of course, being from another country and immigrating as an immigrant, you're always going to have just a different perspective on where you are. So,
It's
but
pretty
uh,
awesome.
yeah, it is. So you got out of the Air Force, huh? A while
No,
back. You
actually,
still in?
no. I'm still in. Yep, I'm still.
Awesome.
Actually, I am. So I am working on my package currently right now. I've transitioned over, commissioning over.
Okay.
I'm a year out from my degree, less than a year
Awesome.
out, and yeah, actually, I'm right now. It's the debate of whether or not to go blue to green or stay blue, and just to see where the cards lined up. Because I'm not gonna lie, warrant officer sounds pretty sweet. If only I
Yeah,
could get
no,
more.
no, absolutely. But, you know, I guess at the end of the day, is I'm biased. I think the Air Force is always the way to go. But I think depending on what you want to do, the Army might be the answer. So,
I'll never forget when I met. So we were stationed at McCord for years, and we ended
mhm.
up in. Well, I'm sure you know McCord is a joint base with the
Joint
Army.
base. Yep.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because I got to learn so many different sides from the Army side, and it was really funny. So it's a little funny joke we all say. So in the gym at the base, on the left side is all the Army officers, the base,
Hmm.
and on the right side is all the Air Force officers, and you can distinctively tell they were smiling on the right, they were just burned out on the left, and you just walk down this hallway and you're like just smiles and burned out,
Right.
and they all told me the same thing, like our best deployment area, the deed, is their safe haven.
That's right.
So yeah, just different. I think i think honestly, even with my kids, I wouldn't have been a better person if I didn't join.
Yeah. No, I think there's certainly something in service, and I wouldn't say unfortunately, because we're all a volunteer force, which I think makes us
Yeah.
better. But the disadvantage to that is the fact that it seems to be a small group of people that keep volunteering. I'm a first person in my family to join, but most of the people I know, their entire family. have been part of
Really?
the military. Yeah. A lot of the people that I worked with, at least, that are in the military, this isn't like they're either brats themselves, married to brats.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so it just seems like military service is going to fewer and fewer portions of our population, which I think it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. But
Yeah. I I,
yeah.
I actually kind of want to piggyback off that a little bit. I actually find it kind of interesting because um, majority of people that I personally know myself,
Hmm.
they, what's the best way to say this? They could use it, and at the same time, they're also the people that when I work with, I'm the one that's just like, I really do believe that it's a privilege, like that whole perspective, it's a privilege.
Hmm.
And you can say all day long, yeah, I wish the benefits were better. I think everybody has finance problems when it comes to the end of the day. It's like, dang, finances, because when you PCS, it's not as cheap, it's not as easy. It's you get this many days, that's unrealistic. There's so many
Hmm.
different things that everybody probably deals with across the board. But people that I know personally, I feel like they'd be the ones at the same time that I'd work with. I'm like, you don't have to stay for the enlisted side. You don't have to stay
Hmm.
longer than 4 or 6 years. But it's interesting because when you come to the closer to the end, you're like, maybe I should do 4 more. Maybe I should do 6 more. And then
Hmm.
you just start seeing them climb and they change their perspectives. And that kind of happened to me too. I changed my perspective the higher up I went and the different experiences
Hmm.
that I hit. And it's very interesting. I have few friends in the officer side, and it's kind of the same thing. I've started to realize it's just a trend in general. When you first join
Hmm.
in and you come from a high family of military, you kind of
Hmm.
just you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, excuse me. I think it's called a service for a reason, right? It's not, you're not gonna, you're not gonna get wealthy being in the service.
No.
But I think for most of us, at least, we value the work that we're doing and the people that you meet along the way. And so I think that's what keeps a lot of people in, to be honest with you.
What was it like when you were the first one in your family? What was it like?
No, I think I, it was fine. I mean, I didn't, there were some, as with everything, there were some advantages and some disadvantages. Like, I went to a university that had a Corps of Cadets, so and so I got a 4 year good foundation about the military. It was also a joint school. I went to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, like Texas A&M, we have a full-time Corps of Cadets. So we regularly worked together with people that were joining the other services. And so that was a very good foundation for me, I felt. Before I even, got commissioned, that, hey, I had some pretty good
It felt good.
interaction with the other services, and I felt like, okay, this was the Air Force was the
Yeah.
right choice for me. And so that was kind of the advantage I felt like I came in with. The disadvantage, though, is when you don't know how the service really works if you're trying to get ahead, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's always helpful to go into an industry, whether it's the military or not, to just kind of understand not how it formally works, because we're taught that in school, right? Like, this is how things work. You have a chain of command, you're assigned, you get a specialty, you know all that. But it's really the other pieces of it that when you don't have either a mentor or someone that kind of tells you, hey, this is what you can expect to have happen. You just learn lessons, either the wrong lessons or it takes you a while to catch on. And so, I would say that was it. But the advantage was because I had to learn a lot of things on my own, it stuck a lot better in my view. Like if I
Yeah.
was telling someone, if I'm mentoring someone and I said, this is why I think you should do this way, or this is why I did this something this way, and because I had this experience that didn't work out so well, it
Yeah.
sticks a lot better. Again, it's not, that's how people learn, right? From both your mistakes and your successes, if you experience it yourself, you're able to transmit it a lot better, in my view. So that was kind of how I viewed it, you know. So being the first, excuse me, man. So being the first really wasn't a big. I didn't feel like it was a big disadvantage.
Would you say that you're completely different um, uh, before and after? Like the pre you, the pre military, the pre. I don't want to say the word conditioned, but the
Right.
pre younger version of yourself.
Yes, I think I am different only because you've gone through several experiences, right? That makes you a little bit different, I hope, because the whole thing is that you evolve, right? You get more educated, you see more things, you lead different types of organizations. So yeah, you are different in the sense that I'm hoping, and I know I have evolved. I've gotten, and I'm hoping to have been a better person. But an interesting twist was, for example, when I retired, I really did reflect on whether a lot of the things that I did in the military was because of the military, or it was because of who I was. And I think at the end of the day, after retirement, it was who I was. I think I, as a person, and the things that I valued and things that I thought were important to me, didn't change. And I'll give you an example. I'm a huge soccer fan. I played soccer my entire life, and I
I love
enjoy
soccer.
sports, right?
Yeah.
So I kept doing that in the military. So when the PT test came, it wasn't because I didn't train for the PT test. It was because I just felt like I needed to be in shape to be able to play soccer at a pretty high level. And so when the test came, it was not a big deal, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense to you. So there are other factors too that I felt like, as the persons that I was before I joined, I continued to grow, but the core of me, I think, stayed the same.
Do you think you learned a lot? You would you give credit to your parents for a lot of the values that were always there, or do you think you had to learn a lot of them yourself?
Yeah, I think the value that I learned came from not just my immediate parents. Having been born in Ghana, it's not. I like to give credit to the extended family. There are other people that stepped in when, uh, you know, my father died early in my life, and my parents divorced early in my life. So while my mom is still alive and we have a great relationship, there were times where she wasn't there, and so other relatives stepped in. So, but to answer your question, absolutely, a lot of those core values are instilled in me, and were instilled in me pretty early on. And it's not just me saying it. They've done the studies that says, that kind of a stamp is on you by the time you're four. You get other things added, of course, but those foundations are what kind of help you out
What do
through
you think
through
is the
your life.
strongest one out of all three? There's three. What do you think is the most important in your own perspective?
What do you mean? Which three? I'm
Like,
trying to remember.
so integrity, service for self, and excellence. The cheesy one. I call it the cheesy one. Excellence.
Which one? The excellence one?
Yeah, it's kind of cheesy, but yeah, it fits. That is accurate though in every way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think integrity is the foundation
Yeah.
that everything is built on for the most part, especially in the profession of arms. Only because the failure of that could get people killed, right? And so I think so. I view, the way I used to think about it, when I was repeating those things to others. Kind of it's the triangle, because triangle is the most stable form, and I viewed integrity as kind of the foundation,
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
closely followed by service before self, right? Because they're kind of linked. So if
Hmm.
you have integrity and you have service where you're valuing others, then excellence in all you do is your daily work. Your excellence is all the things that you do routinely, right? Trying to get to excellence. So you got to have those foundations, and then that'll help you achieve excellence, if that makes any sense to you. Because I feel like
It does.
excellence is not an event; it's just your normal, right?
It's the unnoticed parts. It's the parts that somebody actually I actually kind of thought of this the other day. So a little bit more about me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I previously had the privilege of being executive assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got fired from that. It was a really good learning moment.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was a it was the dumbest lie that I didn't need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, but when I went through that, I was like, I think that one key piece made me realize the whole term is like, if they don't need to know, they don't need to know. Or like
Right.
just that perspective. I don't think I would ever hit that moment and be like, it's none of your business. Instead of me just trying to make up a lie, just be like, it's none of your business.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, so when I got let go of that position, I learned a whole different side of the military where it's just like that which is a good thing because when you do something, you want to do it genuinely and you want to do it like because you actually feel like you want to do it. So when you go to your unit, you go to your work, and I've noticed this the more involved I am around with different projects or different even in the shop. I've noticed this when people genuinely want to like build it up and make it better, they don't
Mm-hmm.
get offended as easily and they are more open to input. But when people feel like you're trying to like take a rack and stack or you're trying to just um I'm good and out with that, they're not as open and they're more on defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I really noticed that, yeah. Most of the time when you do good work, it doesn't really get noticed. And it may get noticed down the road, but that's not the point of it. And I think that's one of the greatest things that I've learned about it is when you do something genuine, it actually helps out more people than just yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You hear that in other parts of life outside the military, which I also try to experience. Uh,
Yeah.
Talk to people from different walks of life uh,
You probably
outside the
talk to a
military.
lot.
Yeah, no, outside of your
Yeah.
normal, just your normal military day-to-day things, and they go hand in hand. Again, when you talked about the competition we have in the military, I
It's
mean,
real.
it can
It's
be
real.
good, but at the same time, it also sometimes does not promote the best outcomes, right? Where,
Yeah.
to your point, if we're constantly being rated against each other,
Yeah.
what's the incentive to try and work as a team, right? Like,
That is so
because
true.
someone is going to try and come out as number one,
Yeah.
and and you know the approach you take, a lot of times you can be the number one and not be the best player. And I'll give you again. I use soccer a lot in a lot of my
Yeah.
talk
I'm thinking
sometimes.
basketball. I'm thinking basketball actually in my head, but yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. Please.
basketball, but in general in sports, and I just think about every single time I was voted as the MVP for my team. I was never the best player, like in terms of just technically being, um, having a very good game technically.
Yeah.
But I was on multiple teams that I got voted the MVP because I felt like I was more diverse. I was willing to, cover for others' mistakes. And I think people recognize that, right? Like, and I wasn't worried about being the MVP, really. That was not on my mind at that time. Like, yeah, I want to be the MVP.
You had bigger
I
issues.
just wanted to be, I just wanted to win, and I wanted to do as much as I can to help in that cause, right? And so
Yeah.
I would play on teams where I knew there were players that were technically much better than I was, and I would play defense. And so, but what did that help me with? it made me probably one of the more diverse players on the team where the coach could put me in different places. And so again, I didn't set out to go play defense. That wasn't my favorite position to play, right? No one wants to play defense. But I was willing to do it, and I was willing to do it well. And so um, I would say it applies to a lot of people. You know, I voted for people to be, you know, DGs in schools or the best in class because you recognize those people that are just genuinely good at what they do and they want to help out everybody else. And so, and then people can always tell who's going for the distinguished graduate, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are nice and some of them are, you know, are cutthroat to get there. But and sometimes they win. So you can't I'm not Pollyanna to tell you, you know, if you just don't worry about it and not compete, that it's gonna work out for you. It doesn't
Yeah.
always work out that way. I just, you know, and I'll finish with this example where, you know, I was in a unit and we were voting for, you know, the best at the time I was an Intel person. We were voting for the best Intel person. And I voted for someone else and I lost by that one vote, you know. So, you know,
The
so the
irony.
lesson is, yeah, exactly. And so there are times when you have to vote for yourself, right? And so that's just the balance, right? And
Yeah.
so um,
But you
yeah,
did the
if you
better
don't,
thing. Yeah, you did the real better, the more humble approach.
yeah, but is it really? I mean, you know, let's just be honest here, right? Like, did I think I was better than him? I don't know, but I just thought, yeah, it's not. You shouldn't vote for yourself. But
Yeah.
everybody else obviously thought I was. You know, a lot of people did anyway. So
I wonder if I
I'm
could.
curious though, why did you decide to do this thing here? Since
So,
you're still active, right? You said you're active,
yep, I'm so
and you're
active.
like, hey, I just want to have a conversation. That's very interesting. I'm curious about.
It's really, it's. I've been getting. I've got it. You're. I don't know what's going on with your camera. Your camera also has been off. I don't
Oh,
know if
really?
you're aware. I don't know if you're aware of it or not. So,
So
um,
let me see.
I
Turn
just
on.
roll. I just rolled with it.
Oh,
There you go. Yeah, you're back on.
okay.
Uh, so it's actually kind of interesting. My commander is actually on. I'm pretty sure he's one of my followers, and I openly invited him. I openly invited him because I don't have anything to hide. I'd like to say I'm aware enough or self aware enough to know what's right and what's not,
Mm-hmm.
and I edit and I remove, and I just like that's why I said in the beginning I was like, hey, I'm very aware of like the time that we're in and the twisted
Yeah.
media, and
Yes.
so I'm confident enough that I'm not going to make that mistake or
Mm-hmm.
be have an ego.
Right.
But I was just with my kids one day, and I actually so like I grew up without parents, and I grew up with a secondary family that kind of helped raise me.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I like our kids are like our main focus with everything, and it's really interesting because um, we went on a recent trip to Disney, and I'm sure you're
Mm-hmm.
aware of how expensive Disney can be.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but we've done it every year, and we go to the zoos and we go to these aquariums and we have tons of memberships. We have to start canceling them actually now. But with our kids are only 4 and 5, and I've noticed on our recent trip that we were on that their cousins, which is the same age as them, are completely night and day different. Our kids are happy. They are
Mm-hmm.
very friendly. They're caring. Ever since they were young, I taught them to like help each other out. Hey, where's
Mm-hmm.
your brother? Where's your brother? You're in trouble. You're both in timeout together. You're both going to be
Right.
disciplined together. And I've just noticed that their ability to be just kinder is there and irrelevant. I mean, is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with this, and I was like, I think I'm just going to make my own little YouTube thing and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just kind of built. I'm not in no hurry, and I'm just doing it
Mm-hmm.
myself. But
Right.
there was people that was like, "You shouldn't be doing that because you're military. You shouldn't be doing." I was like, "Why? I don't have any. I I'm very
We're
much
not
aware.
talking about.
I'm very much aware of the other side of this that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just fun. It's just fun having conversations. And I learn best through them. I don't know, just little. words, triggers, and just the way that my brain works.
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting though because uh, I feel like people are the most genuine people when they're outside of uniform or outside of their work, and even
Hmm.
so, even further than that, um, the commander that actually fired me, I actually fist bumped him. Well, he did. There was a shirt. I got pulled in the office. They're like, "Hey, you're being like." I was like, "Actually, no. That was it. Was actually the Chiefs." So the
Hmm.
Chiefs pulled me in the office, like, "Hey, you're getting let go. This is why. Just want to let you know." And then I vented, and I went through that. But then when I saw him later down the road, this was like a year and a half ago now. At this point,
Hmm.
I just fist bumped him, and I just said thank you. I said thank you for. I know the conversations that are always had behind doors,
Hmm.
and I was like, I just want to appreciate. I want to give appreciation because I would have never been where I am now and learned that lesson that I need to learn. And I don't think I
Hmm.
would have liked that job, to be honest, because it's a very politically blue or white collar
Hmm.
job.
Hmm.
And that's where I want to give you a little bit of respect because it's not easy. I can only assume for now until I commission over, but it's not easy making the decisions and not being able to tell them the why behind it, or just knowing that the why sometimes gets trickled out through the telephone game. You make a decision, and then next thing you
Hmm.
know, they hate you. But
Right.
it's not
Yeah. I
easy.
mean, no, it's not easy, but I've found that communicating is so important, no matter what it is, good or bad news. I'm
Yeah,
not a big talker. I say a lot of times I say I'm an introvert, but when it
yeah,
comes to talking to people, I'm willing to do that. Like that is the interaction that I'm interested in. And whether it's good or bad, you have to be able to communicate. And you have to be able to communicate humanely. Um,
yeah.
you
With
know,
dignity.
yeah, it's not because every news, there's a chance 50-50. You're going to have good news or bad news. So that's half the time you have to learn how to talk about things that are not pleasant. Again, it's not easy, but you have to manage it. And you just get better over time, right? And the key thing I learned there was as long as you don't attack the person or you don't focus on the person but the problem, it goes a lot easier because people always saying, "Oh yeah, don't take it personally," but we all take it personally. Like it doesn't matter what it is with your wife, with your family. It doesn't matter when someone says something that you don't like, you take it personally, right? And when you like it,
Yeah.
you take it personally too. When you like it, I'm great. When you don't like it, you're like, "Oh man." Yeah, so then you become defensive, but as leaders, we must have those conversations. You know, if you're trying to achieve something and get results, we all need to be accountable, including me. I don't mind someone that works for me saying, "Hey, sir, I think you were off on that." Again, we everything has, in my view, needs to be presented appropriately because usually when it's not, is when it gets out of hand. And so I've always tried to present the case as appropriately as I possibly can, even to someone who's also above me, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it goes both ways. I might get that bad news from my boss, and I've been fortunate. I've had some pretty good bosses, and we've kind of all had mutual respect for each other to be able to disagree and agree on things. And so I find that if you focus on the action and not the person, it goes a lot better. It gets much easier.
Does that also help with your own wife and your own whenever you have to present problems? Because some of the greatest leaders I've ever had have
Oh,
all told me the same thing. They're like, "This is easy compared to doing this at home."
that's right. Yeah. When it comes to spouses, all the rules go out because we all kind of know which buttons to press when you're trying to get a reaction. So, no, I mean, I still, the people
Yeah.
you love, I try my best to be more loving, right? When you're presenting, even when there's a problem. I've got two grown daughters, and communicating with them is the same way. I show them respect, right? Like, yeah, they're my daughters. They're adult individuals that all deserve respect. And it would go both ways. As a dad, if I want that respect, I can't disrespect them thinking somehow
Yeah,
because they're my kids. It doesn't work that way. So that goes back to the point I made about who I was when I joined the Air Force and who I came out with. I think I was the same person. All the things that I was taught as a kid, in Ghana about when you're talking to people, remember that's someone's son, daughter, someone's mother. All of those things you have to keep in mind. And that kind of helps you, I think, approach people differently than you would if you just didn't think through those things.
like a
And you
trust
do it
issue.
enough, it just becomes automatic, right?
I want to ask you because maybe you have a really good answer for this since your daughters are older. But how did you ever get worried that you were going to be their friend rather than their father or vice versa? Like where did you find the balance in that? Because speaking from my own experience, you know, I'm already like constantly wondering like I think I critique myself the most when it comes to disciplining the kids. Later
Yeah.
on I think about it, I'm like, man, did I was I too harsh there or was I did I do the right thing?
Hmm.
So how did that progress?
Yeah, I think every parent has those questions because if you don't, you're not really thinking. Like, right? You're not trying to be a parent. You gotta have, kids are different, but what I found was they watch you more than you know. Like what you do, the way you behave is just as important as what you tell them.
Mm,
Because your kids have probably told you that, oh, you didn't do that. Like when you try to tell them don't do something, like,
yeah.
well, we saw you not do that before. So I feel like you have to model what you're trying to tell them to do. And, as they're going through certain stages, you just have to recognize it. And what both my wife and I say right now is just enjoy every stage of your kids' lives because like right now they think you are God. You don't make any mistake. Well, as they become teenagers and they hang around friends, they'll start to test that those boundaries. They'll start questioning you. And my girls went through
Interesting.
that where dad goes from being knowing everything to not knowing anything at all. And now, they're much older and now they've come back. It's like, but it starts
Yeah.
with the foundation you're setting right now, the boundaries that you create. All the things you create in this stage of their lives is critical because they are going to go through a time where you won't ever be right. You don't ever understand what they're going through. But they have to do it because we all went through it, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
your friends become more important, right? Like your friends become more important. Hanging out with your friends become more important. And I mean, I say it's probably more difficult nowadays because of what's online and what kids are allowed to see, and
It's
you know,
crazy. Yeah.
it's more challenging to be honest. I think now with we were talking to our daughters yesterday about the kinds of shows they used to watch, Barney, and we manage that as best as we can. We could, right? And not, but they watch Barney, VeggieTales, all those things, and
Yeah.
Sesame Street, and things like that. But now, like kids have tablets by the time they're 5 years old, and you go to restaurants and you see them looking at it. And so I think there are advantages to that and there are disadvantages to that. We don't know what those impacts are quite yet, right? And so, um,
We were
but
just talking about that too. Actually, how ironic it was that we do this. We give our kids a tablet, but we pre-download and we pre-vet what they watch.
mhm,
And a lot of people don't do that little tiny thing. But then it also got me thinking. I was like, man, when you were a kid, or especially you, since you came from another country, that's definitely, yeah,
Hmm.
I can only imagine that difference. But they didn't have this back in the 80s, the 90s. They didn't have mental health awareness. They didn't have,
Yeah.
what's it called, mental health days at school. You can just claim
Yeah.
mental health day and just be like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm claiming mental health. Like they did,
That's right.
you had to figure it out, and you were still held to the higher standard.
Hmm.
Um, and then even so much of the Barney and TV shows back then, that wasn't the message that it is today. You could just put on a TV, and majority of the time, it was actually pretty just decent shows. It was just,
Right.
do you want to watch TV or do you want to go outside and play soccer?
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, I do think there are some challenges that we didn't have to deal with that parents now have to address. And I don't have the answers for them. I feel like people have to navigate that themselves because I'm also not one of those people that think, oh yeah, we did it so well back then. Like, we did the best we could at the time. That's it.
Yeah,
And that's all I
yeah,
will ask. I think anyone can do now. You do the best that you can. And I think, for parents, I just want my kids to be decent human beings and contribute to society. That's it.
yeah,
You know, that's the rest of the things. I think what they do for a living. That is all their choices. It's not something you're going to be able to do. It's going to be all their work that gets them to certain places. And of course, you giving them the foundation that opens it. It's pretty good. I had lunch with a friend, and he gave me a different perspective uh, that he presented to his kids. And he's like, when you're 18 years old, your world is like this. He kind of stretched out his arms going forward, right?
yeah,
And he's like, why would you do something that gives you much less of a choice? You go to jail, you're definitely like this now, like, because you come out and there's only, right? And so that's what we try to do. I mean, that's what you're trying to do for your kids and help them have the foundation to continue to have these options as they get older,
yeah,
right? Because those options will shrink from the outside. You don't go to college, you don't do something, then your choices are reduced. But as long as you don't do something crazy, you know, hurt someone, murder someone,
yeah,
right? Those options are still there. Do drugs, drunk and drive, those kinds of things that are really, yeah. I just thought that was very, very interesting. I've I've talked about it differently, but that was a pretty good way to
it's a
kind
pretty
of,
good analogy with the arm
yeah,
technique and just looking
that's right.
outward. Yeah,
So that was really good. I thought, man, yeah, again, from conversations, just having lunch with a friend. And we were
yeah.
talking about our kids, because we're about the same age, and he's got two girls, I have two girls as well. He's like, yeah, that's kind of how I explained it to him.
I
Um,
I hear that's actually a very common thing for for parents to get nervous about because, well, actually, because I haven't hit that stage yet. But I was told it doesn't get easier the older they get because when they start driving, that's a new set of problems now that you gotta, be comfortable with. What if they make that mistake? Are you the person that they know that they can trust to call when they know that they messed up?
yeah,
All these
exactly.
stages that it doesn't get easier.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, it gets easier in other ways, but then again, it's just life. It's There are always two sides to it, right? Because as they're getting older and they're getting more independent, you have a different kind of burden.
Yeah,
Like now, you have to drive your kids everywhere. You're more holding their hands. When they get older, you have a different role, which is to continue to stay engaged when they don't want any part of you, right? Like, how do you do that,
yeah,
right? And they always appreciated it. They always appreciated it. Because a good example of this is, when our kids went to college, we were still in Germany, and my wife
Really?
called them every day.
Wow.
She called them every day. I was like, man, why are you calling them so much? I thought even because when I was in school, no one called me every day.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
did that. The girls later told her they appreciated it. Like, if you're having a bad day, but your mom is gonna call you,
True.
it's okay. Like they know they'll have a chance to talk about it if they want to, and then if they don't want to, just hearing her telling them how much she loves them was significant. So these, kids that you would think want to not come home or do things are actually looking forward to hearing from their mom. So you never stop being a parent, and providing support to your kids is, one of our primary jobs, in my view, is to continue to do that.
What was if I I don't want to take up too much of your time. What
Yeah,
was
no.
what was one thing that you I'm trying to find the best way to put this. So your wife did that, which is actually I didn't even think about that, calling them once a day because my mom used to do that actually in some ways.
Mm.
But what was one thing that you want to continue on as a tradition for your kids? Like that was when you were a kid. Like, did you bring anything to the table? You're like, hey, this is what we did, and it was something you want to continue out, or was it all just new trial and errors?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't, there were no real traditions that I wanted to bring, only because my kids were not Ghanaian. Like, I need to recognize that,
Yeah,
right? There were lessons that I taught them that were taught in a way that was taught to me. Like in African culture, a lot of things get passed down through games or just through sayings, that I did a little bit of that with them. I bought them a book called the Anansi series. Anansi is a spider in my native language where he does like all these things, and we use that to tell more moral stories, like being greedy, not sharing. That
yeah,
I did a little bit of that, but for the most part, my wife and I just kind of, I wouldn't say winged it, but we thought, we did what we thought was best for the kids. And I'm not, I think traditions are important, uh, but I feel like what's more important is knowing where you are and doing the best that you can at the time. Traditions, again, were created for a reason, like some of the traditions are religious, some of them were meant to maybe even protect. But that's not the case anymore. Like a lot of traditions, once you find the roots of them, make sense, right? But for me, I think the other part of it was I didn't really have a traditional upcoming in my life. Again, I lived with different families, and so
yeah.
there wasn't one set of rules or guides that kind of shaped me because again, it was more, you know, living with different families, living with, aunts and uncles, not living with your actual parents, I think does also make a difference. It's not, and I think where I see that in my life is you could put me anywhere in the world and say, hey, figure it out, and I will, because that's what I had to do as a youngster, where you get put in the middle of different families, and you're the person that has to make, you have to fit in. Like you can't come in and say, I have these things. You have to make yourself fit in and make the team work. And I think again that's helped me in the military as well. As you well know, we get put in the middle of teams that have long been established all the time. And you're the new person on the block. And how do you make an impact and how do you start contributing? And it can be hard for people. It can be hard for some people. But for me, that was kind of the norm. It's just, switching families, based on whatever else is going on in family dynamics. And I was always the one that had to, you have to be the adjustment if you're the new person coming in on the block. So it's a long way to answer your thing on traditions. The bottom line to say I don't really have any traditions that I pass down other than, using storytelling to actually get your points across, which is something that is valued in Ghanaian cultures. Like wisdom is something people thrive to get to, right? Where you're able
Yeah.
to come up with things that get points across by using storytelling, by using sayings and proverbs to make your points. And that I do a little bit of that with the girls, and I think again when you're going through the stories, they get the morality, but I think they appreciated that aspect of my of being a Ghanaian.
I want to ask you, do you see a wall in front of you, or do you always see the green on the other side? Like growing up or going through sports or just having to switch between different housings. And I'm kind of familiar with that myself.
Hmm.
I feel like I never saw a wall. I
Hmm.
always, and I actually they actually made jokes about this back when I was in the exec position. They were like, there's never a wall in front of you. You always look around and try to find out what you can do with what you got. Did you have that same kind of thought process? And that's what kind of
Yeah,
helped you out in sports too?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, yeah, I would totally agree with you. Is when you're presented with a situation, your framework and your intent has a lot to do whether you can get it, you can solve that problem or not. Like if you think, you've heard the sayings, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. You've
Yeah.
heard that, right?
Yeah, I heard that one.
And
Yeah.
so my view is your frame of mind is always is what's going to help you. And if your frame of mind is, limiting and thinking that, oh, you can't get around it,
Yeah.
that's exactly what's going to happen. And so, uh, for me, again, some people view it as negative, but I focus a lot on where I'm at right now as opposed to where I think I'm going to go. Um, and of
Interesting.
course, I don't really focus on in the past as much. I try not to um, focus on the past much, but I feel like the only thing you do control is the now, is where you are. So the example I like to give is none of the jobs that I had that made me successful were anywhere on the plan I had. Like I didn't say, I want to go to this specific position and do this specific job. What I found was when I focused on doing the job that I had really well, it opened the right avenues for me. And the jobs that I would take, I had actually built a foundation in my current job. So I think between that and just how I grew up, like I never knew what my life was going to be. I already told you, parents die early, my dad dying early, parents divorcing. I didn't control any of that, right? But I had to live it. And so I think what the impact that had on me was not to focus on the future because I knew at any given day the future could look very, very different. Yeah, so I do think it's related. It helped with that framework where I don't think when you're presented a problem that's the end of it, right? I just feel like yeah, when the problem comes, is then you look for solutions because problems will come,
I,
right? So
you
yeah,
have,
like
I gotta give you credit. You actually, so like, um, I was actually just talking this with my wife the other day because she's a reeler. She's an Instagram reeler. She's a doom
hmm.
scroller, and I
Oh,
make
cool.
fun of. We actually had an argument one time because I made a joke and she didn't like the joke.
Hmm.
But she's a doom scroller. Scroller. She'll just scroll and scroll and scroll, and you're like, "That's 30 minutes of your life you won't get back."
Hmm.
And there was one that made a joke, and it was like, "I got my degree before Chat GPT, or I got my degree before y'all have AI." And I started
Hmm.
thinking about it, I was like, dang, you're right. There's a whole generation of people that, because I use ChatGPT now, thankfully, I actually, because I want to learn the material, I use it to help
Hmm.
give me a tutoring service. Like, hey, help me figure out how to actually get this answer, help me figure out how to find the path that I can understand. But then I go on and I'm in class and I'm doing full time school, and I see people and I can read. I'm sure you can read it too, but you can just read when people just don't even put in the effort. It's
Yeah.
like copy paste, and then that's their work, and you're like, so there's going to be the people that use it for what it's supposed to be, a service, and then there's
Hmm.
going to be the people that just rely on it, and
Yeah.
just they're the ones that just, I don't know where that's going to go. I really don't know. But you had a generation yourself that you didn't even have those tools, and you didn't have like your textbooks. You actually had to probably read the textbooks, go to class, go to the library, make sure you're on time for soccer, like X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, again, I think
Yeah.
there are great things about technology because, like any living thing, humans, like any living thing, when you don't evolve, you probably die out.
Yeah.
Like, and so I expect there to be evolution and new inventions coming up. But you always have to recognize, and I know I'm going to repeat it, that there are two sides to everything. And once you acknowledge that, what you do is, like they tell us to do individually, you kind of maximize your strength and you reduce your weakness as much as you possibly can. Then you can do that. And I think where AI could be dangerous is it it prevents you from actually exercising your brain. And I'm not the only one to say this. I didn't need ChatGPT to tell me that if you didn't exercise your brain, right,
Yeah.
it's not going to be good. And so when you look at what ChatGPT and all these other AIs do, rather than enhancing your brain and making it less reliant, like if I don't have to waste my time on doing two plus two, that's fine because I already know how to do that, right? Or, but if I'm trying to make an argument and I'm relying on ChatGPT to do it, then
That's a good point.
you've
That's a
you've
good
missed
point.
the point, right? And
Yeah, that's a
so
good point.
that I mean that's what concerns me is the fact that human beings, just like your muscles, everyone tells you if you don't move, if you don't exercise, your body will atrophy, right? Your body has already experienced some level of atrophy because you're getting older. But if you don't do anything at all, it'll just accelerate. Well, your brain is also just another organ, right? That needs that engagement. Like, when you're building muscles, they say you tear the muscles down, so it comes back. It comes back stronger. So you need your brain to be exercised. And so I just seems like that's what we need to guard against. Like in school, you teach the kid, hey, this is how you do multiplication. And then later you can let them use the machine. I think it's value because especially kids can their capacity to learn is much better than ours because they
Yeah.
don't they don't have their brain filled with fear, filled with stress, filled with they kids don't have fear unless some parent teaches them like fear that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they think everything is good, right? And so
Yeah. Right.
kids are probably, are are great at learning different things at early on. I feel like humans, we think differently. We think differently than we should. The younger you are, the more you can do, and you should do it, right? Like physically,
You really
brain
should.
wise, you
You really
should.
should
But we
travel.
waste,
Do yeah.
yeah, and like that's kind of the thing I have found. It's like, yeah, when you were a kid, and I just remembered all the things that I went through as an adult. I probably would have been thinking, woe me, life sucks. There are
Yeah.
times you probably felt that way, but as a kid, I also felt like, yeah, I could do that. I could try that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can. And so that's my concern. It's like when you're just having all these brains that are not being exercised enough, it doesn't end well in terms of human to human interactions, and how you solve problems together. And
I feel like a lot of people, well, I feel like when you also rely off of the system to take care of your kid, or if you were a parent where, maybe you just don't have the time, or you didn't realize you're putting no effort into it. But when you don't actually realize, it's like that's your kid and that's your responsibility to teach them the values and to teach them the differences. And I really do believe that if your kid turns out to be bratty, spoiled, snotty, the opposite of what you'd like your kid to be,
hmm
then that's a direct reflection of you, and then what you did and how you taught your kid, and vice versa. Your kid comes out very kind, and I think we actually touched on this beginning. Your
hmm
kids, you said it. Your kid's seeing so many actions that you're not even aware that they're seeing of you.
yeah, I mean, and I didn't mean to say kids and work employees and your teammates are the same
Yeah.
way, but they are. As a leader, they watch what you do,
Oh,
not
they
just
can
what you
become our
say.
kids. Younger
Yeah,
boys. I'm in the enlisted side, so as an
yeah,
NCO, it's just like,
yeah. No,
man,
man.
you guys are kids.
I would say you're
Yeah,
definitely younger, but
yeah,
but
yeah.
everyone watches you. Your peers, they see how you do things, and everybody watches what you do more than what you say. Um, Although sometimes it doesn't feel that way because influencers and people that are online just doing their thing are saying a lot, and that seems to be the way everything is heading to. But
What do you want to be
yeah,
remembered as? My last question for you: what do you want to be remembered as from your kids'
and
eyes? How do you hope they remember you as?
no, I mean, I feel like what I want them to know is I was always their dad. Like dad was always dad for us. It doesn't that was the role I played in their lives, and he was there, and that he also, he made a contribution to society. The same thing I expect from them, right?
Yeah.
To be the good person, good people, contribute to society the best that they can. I think that's all anyone can ask, and I think an important piece of that is you just being good to yourself, like
Yeah.
being taking care of yourself, and because that's how you're actually able to help other people. It's I don't know a lot of people that are not in good shape that can help other people. So that's part of it, right? That's why we have to take care of ourselves, be responsible for our actions, and be in a good space inside. Because the space that we have inside is really what you project out. I've never met someone who's miserable inside and is kind outside. It just doesn't happen. Because people can tell when someone is faking anything. Like everybody can tell when someone is not being
Authentic,
themselves,
genuine,
authentic.
caring.
Exactly. People can tell. Um,
Yeah, you definitely must have
so.
felt a lot of that. People trying to. I honestly feel bad for not feel bad. That's the wrong way to put it. I feel like some of the great leaders that I had.
hmm
Uh, I always felt. I felt. Um, what's the way to put it? Actually, I felt like people were always trying to take advantage of them, and like I had some really great leaders. I was like, man, you guys are really like they really do care for the people, and
hmm
they're the ones behind the doors where they're not they're taking a hit just to make
hmm
sure the person gets the recognition they need,
Yeah.
and people would just flood them with their issues, and they wouldn't realize like you are very lucky to have that individual as your, you know, as your chief or as your senior
hmm
or as your commander. Um, and people don't really stop to like actually just think that maybe the first step is just to not focus on themselves selfishly, but
hmm
I find that if you really care for yourself as well, like you said, and you take care of yourself and you do your own regimen, and it could be the smallest or biggest thing, you
Hmm.
tend to look at people more kinder
Yeah.
and more of a broader shoulder, open arm.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
And it never
again, it's hard.
rains.
Excuse me. It's hard to help others or see others in need if you have so many needs yourself. It's human nature. It's tough. It's tough to get out of that kind of a framework.
Well, we definitely spent up an hour.
Yeah, we did.
This has actually been a really awesome conversation.
Good. Hopefully you get something out of it. I
I
don't
got a
know.
few things out of this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a few good things. I will go ahead and send you a copy. That way you can have it for your record, and you can
Okay.
let me know if there's anything you want me to make sure to take out. I definitely I like doing this because you get to connect with people all across different walks of the life.
Yeah, no, it's a really neat project you have going on.
Yeah.
Maybe you become an influencer yourself. This is, I mean, again, there's value in it, I think, one of these days I keep talking about starting my own business. And so I'll probably have to do some of this stuff eventually myself.
Yeah, you should. You should start your own business. I know a few VPs that actually, I didn't realize people pay pretty good money for coaches. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
that's what
that.
I'm hearing,
Yeah,
and
you get pretty good money, and if you have the experience for backing it up.
yeah, I don't know, coaching. It's like, wow, you
Everybody
still
needs a
have to do
coach.
the work, but there are
They
a lot
do.
of coaches out there for sure.
Yeah, it's a flooded market.
Mm.
But yes, sir. Thank you for taking time out of your day today.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And like I said, I hope you got a few nuggets out of it.
I did, sir. Have a
All
good
right.
day.
You too.